Alright, I'm going to, by the will of the Creator, speak about ghosts, demons, angels, unclean spirits, foul spirits. I know there's all kinds of theological discussion out there, on such topics. But I just want to fundamentally insert, you know, the divine revelation, not my imaginations on things. If I read something and I say, okay, to the best of my understanding, I interpret, the scriptures to mean this. That just means, okay, I have not received divine revelation specifically to the best of my knowledge about what I've read on that matter, and that my reading comprehension of what I'm seeing, is such. And I'll be blatant about that. But when I talk about things that I say divine revelation, I'm saying that God showed me, the Creator showed me by dreams, visions, revelations directly from the Creator concerning such things, and I am just blatantly saying what I was shown, and people can take it or leave it. And I'm not trying to be like, okay, I'm the final word on anything. I'm just trying to be like, entering into the open discussion of such things to hopefully aid in enlightenment. And because I fundamentally believe in the revelation of God showed me about the pre-incarnation of when the Creator would declare truth, that the beings that we were, the consciousness that we were before we even incarnated, would just perceive it as exactly what it was, truth, and they would just go, amen, that's truth. In other words, I fundamentally believe that the reason why all societies should always maintain the right to free speech is because I believe that truth will always prevail in such a society. In other words, as long as everybody's got the right to just speak openly, honestly, truthfully about any topic, that people will automatically know, what is BS from what isn't. Now, I'm not saying that they might not know it right away, because I know for a fact brainwashing occurs, and it has occurred through, false doctrines, not only through religions, but through public education, through many methods, through media, etc., etc. So I know people can and are deceived. But I am saying that as long as people have the right to speak and declare truth, that truth eventually, declared, breaks down all those deceptions, crushes them like a hammer on a fragile material, man. It just truth just shatters lies, it just disintegrates them. The lies fall apart. So I'm going to talk about the things that the Lord showed me. That there's all manner of angels. There's all manner of devils or demons. And in fact, if people had their spiritual eyes opened, they would see a population on Earth, at least as many. When they're in a crowd of people, they would see at least as many angels, devils, demons, all around as there are people, for the most part, everywhere. In other words, there's this huge population on Earth all around us constantly of demons, devils, angels, and so on and so forth. I mean, not just battling somewhere in the ethereal space up above us. That they're all over. And so when I talk about ghosts, I'm going to try to be as clear as I can about these different, topics. And I know people will say, well, these are all synonymous: ghosts, spirits, angels, and even I, in my discussions through the text, talk about the synonymous relationship of such terms. But I want to also, declare the distinctions between them. Okay, there are distinctions. For instance, in the demonic realm, I saw, all types of foul and unclean spirits, of demons, of devils. Now, and when I say that, I mean that for every, type of open physical manifestation, for instance, if there's movies about vampires, that imagination, that concept that entered into somebody's mind came from the spiritual reality of their existence. So if you see a movie about, zombies or whatever, that's because in the spiritual realm there's such foul and unclean spirits that are like cannibals, that eat human flesh, And when a real physical person becomes possessed, or even under that kind of influence, then they actually start to do that in reality. Hence, there's been whole nations of cannibals and tribes and this and that in the past. And I'm not saying that it's been completely done away with. I'm trying to enlighten where reality comes from. In other words, the physical things that we behold, whether it's a movie. People just call, well, that's just fantasy, that's just imagination. And I'm saying, well, where did that imagination come from? And people say, well, it was just conceived by chemicals in their brain or something like that. And I'm like telling you, no, that's not where imaginations come from. Imaginations come from spiritual influences. Imaginations come from the invisible realm. Fundamentally, that's scientifically true. All things visible are made up of things we don't see. We know that with the invention of microscopes. We didn't see atoms. We didn't see, electrons and neutrons and protons and gluons and eons and so on and so forth. We didn't see, these invisible things that actually, is what visible matter is comprised of. And I'm telling you that all that boils down into the invisible realm of non-matter. Mass does not exist in the spiritual realm. It's just energy. That's again why E equals mc squared is just complete baloney. Now, I'm not saying that the other theories of Einstein are baloney. I'm just telling you that the actual formula E equals mc squared is rubbish, because the spiritual realm exists irrespective of matter and mass. And at any rate, so when I say there's all kinds of demons and devils, I'm saying that there's vampires in the spiritual realm, or vampire-ish spirits. In other words, that a person influenced by a vampire spirit, has this desire for blood in the real realm, in the physical realm of reality. And vampirism has documented throughout the history of mankind, and I'm telling you where it comes from. It comes from vampirish spirits. It doesn't come from insane individuals' own imaginations and so on and so forth. It comes from demonically influenced and demonically possessed physical beings of that type of spirit. And some of the demons or devils have these like bat-like wings, and some of them are like really muscular with these, like strongmen type claws. They look like these, bodybuilders of such a narcissistic nature that all they can do is look at themselves in a mirror and all day long, man, work on developing mass and so on and so forth. Those are the reality of demonic influences of that nature, of that kind. In other words, people actually physically transform their appearance based on the spiritual influence working upon them. So when you see men, dressing up like women and applying makeup and so on and so forth, it's an effeminate spirit is having the influence upon that man. I mean, it's also related to, estrogen and all kinds of chemicals in our water supplies due to all the kinds of pharmaceuticals and so on and so forth that happen to mess with their own natural hormones, man, at any age, and especially during the age of development, while they were drinking polluted city waters with all these pharmaceutical medications in them now that are not being properly treated to remove all the chemicals that are being excreted from all the people taking all these drugs. So there's other reasons, basically, why, men and women have trouble distinguishing whether or not they're male or female, irrespective of looking at their own genitals. But I'm just saying, by and large, in the spiritual realm, I'm trying to describe to you that for all these people that think, demons don't exist and angels don't exist and all that, for all those people that are literally that deceived and that clueless, because, it's all as obvious as there is good and evil. It's all, everything in the spiritual realm is blatantly obvious. It actually has these manifestations. You get people, going to cosmetic surgeons these days and inserting all kinds of plastic and I mean defacing themselves, man, and bone structures. You get people actually getting operations done to split their lips so that they look like cats and dogs. I mean, these are happening in reality, and I'm saying that realism isn't coming from people being insane. It's coming from the spiritual realm which is manifesting into the physical realm, through influence upon their thinking. In other words, messing with their imaginations. And that's also why there's dreams that come from the spirit of truth, God. There's dreams that come from the spirit of air, devils, and the spirit of fantasy. In other words, pure fiction, deceptive dreams. Truthful dreams and revelations, deceptive dreams and revelations. They have two different fundamental origins. And, of course, the dreams that come from your own ability to conceive and imagine things from the own individual. And when I say that, that there's all kinds of influences in those three main categories. In other words, dreams that come directly from the Creator, fundamental truth, divine revelation. People that have them, know what they are because they're so powerful. They go beyond the control of the individual to straight declared, fundamental absolute truth, man, and that the Creator Himself invades in time and space and says, okay, I'm going to reveal this to an individual, and does just that. Okay? And that's what I'm talking about when I say divine revelation. That through dreams and visions that come straight from the Creator and work upon the mind of the individual receiving them. They get an understanding, knowledge that comes straight from the Creator of the universe. So I'm talking about these things, about divine revelation, about ghosts and so on and so forth, because I keep hearing all kinds of condemnation coming from fundamental mainstream Christianity that frankly are just people that just really don't know what they're talking about. They did not receive divine revelation, or they wouldn't be declaring false doctrines. So I'm trying to clear it up so that the many people that are trampling upon Christianity because of all the false doctrines of all these people calling themselves Christians, would re-examine Christ instead of how do you say it? Us, which are fallible messengers, okay? And that includes myself. So I'm just declaring truth. That fundamentally, a lot of preachers talk about heaven, and a lot of preachers talk about hell. Some of them talk about paradise. I've never heard a single preacher ever, discuss outer darkness. Now, I'm not saying that there's nobody in all the world that has never mentioned outer darkness. I'm just saying that I personally have never walked into a service in a church where any preacher or even seen a television series on outer darkness. Okay, but we know for a fact it's in the scriptures, and that such a place actually exists because I actually went there, and also because Christ declared it very plainly and stuff. And so what I'm getting at is people talk all the time about common things, and if it's common enough, then it enters into mainstream agreement. Okay, I'm trying to talk about things that get talked about from the pulpits that are not necessarily mainstream agreement, but that I've received by divine revelation, so that hopefully, the truth will shatter all the lies, and that eventually people will understand these things is how things are in reality, and by understanding reality, be empowered to change it for the better. Okay? So I've heard people, bust on, so let's say a famous person for saying, like a Hollywood personality for saying that they had a loved one actually after they passed visit them as a ghost or whatever. I've heard preachers, man, see, that person consults familiar spirits and stuff, demons and devils and stuff, man. They're a Satanist. And I'm like, please don't jump to such conclusions, man. I mean, there is obvious satanic influence in the media. And the ones that are satanically influenced or have made deals with the devil are actually, foolish enough to tell the whole world these days. Because I have no idea why. I actually know I shouldn't say that. I do know why. I've talked with Satanists. Satanists actually think, that they're going to defeat Christ and that there is no hell and all that. The reason why they do that and embrace that is because, they have no desire to repent or to receive Christ. Now, I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying some of them have been tricked into Satanism just through pure ignorance. They got into it at first thinking it was kind of cool, like, rock music or this or that or something. And then they're all like, somebody in the crowd was, under demonic influence enough to start saying things like, hail Satan or this or that or something. And then all of a sudden you get all these people fucking, excuse my language, but I'm being blatant to talk with them on their language and their terms to just, once again, I'm trying to smack them into reality. Wake up, man. Truth. Fundamental truth. So they start tattooing themselves with a 666 and so on and so forth and stuff. And they get caught up in this whole thing of basically, dancing their way into hellfire, even though they don't think that that's what's going to happen. And then you get preachers and stuff and so on and so forth saying that anybody that's ever seen a ghost of a dead loved one or deceased loved one actually was deceived by a demon or devil. And I'm just trying to say, I'm sorry, you're mistaken. I'm sorry, you're mistaken. When Moses and Elijah appeared on the Mount of Transfiguration with Christ, were the apostles there that testified of seeing Moses and Elijah appearing with Christ in white robes and shining light, actually seeing a demonic deception of devils? Now, come on, man. Moses and Elijah were dead now. And they're like, no, they're not. They were alive and stuff. They were transfigured. They were taken up and stuff, and all this and that. And whole new doctrines get, or when the witch consulted Samuel or this or that and stuff. Samuel was dead. So they say, well, that was just a demon. Couldn't have been Samuel. So all I'm saying is that if you have not received divine revelation on such things, you shouldn't. You should just say, look, this is my interpretation of the scriptures as best I understand them. I have not received divine revelation. You should be honest, because I'm telling you point blank that there is a vast universe created by our Creator, and in that vast universe created by our Creator, just like there are all kinds of men, women, and children. I mean, no two of them exactly alike, not even twins. There's similarities between twins. You might think that they were, absolutely positively alike in all respects, but they're not. The breath that God gave each of them is slightly different. Sometimes radically different. They look alike, but they're completely different personalities, even though they were born at the same time and under same, auspices of the celestial clock, so to speak. And still, some of them are radically different. At any rate, all I'm saying is this, is that unless you have divine revelation on something, don't emphatically pound the book and say, well, this is what my Bible says, and this is the way it is, because all that is basically you saying that you absolutely, positively, 110% understand perfectly what you read without any errors ever. And you and I both know that it's not true. So, when I say there's ghosts, what I'm saying is this, is that the Lord revealed to me that when people die, in all the myriad of ways people die, they don't all instantly go either to hell or either to heaven or either to outer darkness even. That some murdered victims, and don't ask me to explain how or why, I'm just telling you what the Lord revealed to me point blank, and you can, argue about it if you want. That really doesn't matter to me. I'm just trying to state truth and open up reality, for people so that they will once again consider seeking the Creator, that they basically were turned off from too much false dogma and doctrine in their, search of the religions when they visited a church. I'm just trying to say, look, don't be turned off to the Creator because of all the many errors of we fallible beings who speak nonsense in our arrogance, basically. I'm trying to say that divine revelation does declare truth, and if you think about it, for any length of time, then you realize that the truth that I'm declaring, being an uneducated person, had to have come from the Creator, and as such, acknowledging the existence of the Creator, realize that you too can learn from the Creator, And in my opinion, that's my whole ultimate goal for talking about all these things, about what I've been shown from our Creator. It's not that anybody would think of me one way or another. It's just to get people